Hey, I'm really glad you're here because if you're listening to this, chances are your mind feels heavy. Maybe not all the time, but enough that you've started noticing the noise, the doubts, the replays, the spinning thoughts that never land anywhere safe. You've probably tried telling yourself to just stop thinking so much. Maybe you've even said, why can't I just let it go already? Trust me, I get that. Not just because I've studied it, but because I've lived it. There was a time when my mind felt like it was working against me. A simple decision would feel like a negotiation with a panel of critics inside my head. I'd say something and then spend the rest of the day wondering how it came across. Did I say too much? Too little? Did I sound weird? Should I have smiled more? Less? It's exhausting, isn't it? But here's something I had to learn the hard way. Overthinking doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're trying to protect yourself. It's your brain doing what it was wired to do: solve problems, anticipate danger, avoid pain. The problem is that your brain doesn't know when to stop. It doesn't know the difference between real danger and imagined disaster. And so it loops. It loops through every scenario, every mistake, every fear, and it convinces you that thinking more will give you peace. But thinking more isn't the same as thinking clearly, and more often than not, it's the opposite. So what do we do with all that noise? We start by noticing it, not judging, not fixing, just noticing. Because awareness is everything. Most of us are so entangled in our thoughts, we don't even realize that we're the ones listening, not the ones speaking. Your mind throws a thought out. You're failing. And instead of seeing it as just a thought, you accept it as truth. You identify with it. You wear it like a label. But here's the truth. You are not your thoughts. That voice in your head, it's not the real you. It's a stream of mental chatter built from past experiences, fears, stories, and habits. And it's been going unchecked for years. So imagine what might happen if, instead of arguing with that voice or obeying it blindly, you just said, interesting, that thought again, and let it float by like a leaf on water. You don't have to attach to it. You don't have to wrestle with it. You can just watch. That's what letting go really starts with. It's not some grand dramatic release. It's the quiet decision to not hold on so tightly. It's breathing before reacting. It's observing before believing. And yes, it takes practice. Some days it will feel effortless, like you're finally in sync with the calm you've been chasing. Other days, your mind will scream and the spiral will feel stronger than your awareness. That's okay. Letting go isn't about perfection. It's about building a relationship with your own mind, a kinder one. I want to talk to you about that spiral for a second. The one where one thought becomes 5 and 5 become 50 and suddenly your chest is tight and you don't even remember where it started. That's not weakness. That's momentum. The mind builds speed the way a snowball builds size. Quietly and then all at once. And the way we slow it down is not by yelling at it to stop. It's by placing something in its path. A pause, a breath, a grounding question like, what do I actually know right now? Not what you fear, not what you assume, just what is true right now. That question alone has pulled me out of countless spirals. It reorients you. It brings you out of imagined futures and back into reality where you actually have influence. Because that's another trap of overthinking, the illusion of control. We think if we obsess enough, we'll prevent bad things. If we analyze enough, we won't get hurt. But all it really does is disconnect us from the only moment we ever have, the one we're in. So I invite you to be here, right now. Feel your feet, breathe into your belly, listen to the sound of your own inhale. You don't have to solve anything right this second. You don't need to fix yourself to be worthy of peace. Peace isn't a reward, it's a baseline. And you're allowed to return to it, even when things feel messy. Especially then. And maybe no one ever taught you how to do that. Maybe you grew up thinking anxiety was just part of being a responsible adult. Maybe you learned to suppress your emotions instead of feeling them. Maybe you still carry stories that were never yours to begin with. But today in this space, you don't have to carry all of that. You're allowed to loosen your grip. You're allowed to say, I don't need this thought right now. You're allowed to walk away from conversations in your head that you've had 1,000 times and gotten nowhere with. Letting go isn't always about the past. Sometimes it's about the habit. the mental muscle that keeps returning to old pain out of familiarity. It's strange, isn't it? How we can find comfort even in discomfort, because at least it's known. But peace lives in the unknown, in the space you create when you stop rehearsing, stop fixing, stop predicting, and start simply being. Let me tell you something strange but true. Sometimes we're scared of peace. We crave it, we chase it, but when it finally shows up, in the quiet, in the stillness, we panic. We think, this can't last, or I must be forgetting something. We've gotten so used to carrying tension that peace feels suspicious, like a silence that's too loud. That's not your fault, that's conditioning. Somewhere along the line, your nervous system decided that stillness was unsafe, that vigilance meant survival. And now, even when things are okay, your body stays braced. That's why the first thing I always say is, be gentle with yourself. Because this isn't about fixing, this isn't about becoming some Zen robot who never gets overwhelmed or triggered. This is about building a different relationship with discomfort, one where you don't run from it, but you also don't bow to it. Instead, you breathe through it, you sit with it without asking it to leave immediately, and slowly, so slowly, it starts to shift. The more you practice this, the more you'll start to notice something subtle but powerful. You're not afraid of the moment. You're afraid of the story you're telling yourself about the moment. Think about it. You're not actually afraid of the meeting. You're afraid of messing up and what people might think of you afterward. You're not afraid of the conversation. You're afraid of rejection, judgment, awkwardness. But none of those are happening yet. They're just shadows on the wall. Shadows of maybe. And once you learn to sit with those shadows without flinching, without letting them run the show, everything starts to soften. Your breath deepens, your shoulders lower, and suddenly you're not in the future or the past. You're just here, present. And in presence, there's power. There's this moment I always come back to, something that changed everything for me. I was sitting alone one night trying to make a decision. Nothing dramatic, just one of those choices that overthinkers can turn into a chess match. I was weighing every option, every possible outcome, and I felt paralyzed. And then, for some reason, I asked myself, what if there's no perfect answer? And the tension broke because I realized I wasn't trying to make a choice. I was trying to avoid regret. I was trying to avoid pain. And when I let go of that illusion that I could choose perfectly and prevent discomfort, I could finally move. That's what keeps us stuck so often. We're not deciding from clarity, we're deciding from fear. We think the more we analyze, the safer we'll be. But safety doesn't come from certainty. It comes from trust. Trust that no matter what happens, you'll handle it. You don't need to know how it'll unfold. You just need to know that you'll show up. And that kind of trust, it builds slowly, with evidence. Every time you make a move without having all the answers and survive, it grows. Every time you show up to the hard thing and don't fall apart, it grows. Until eventually, you stop needing to predict everything. You stop needing to rehearse every scenario. You just live. And that's where freedom is. Freedom isn't in controlling everything. It's in knowing you don't have to. Let me ask you something. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing your mind says to you? Is it kind? Is it gentle? Or does it jump straight into panic mode? Reminders, worries, lists. Most of us wake up already behind, already failing. We open our eyes and immediately feel pressure. So here's a small shift that changed everything for me. Before I even get out of bed, I whisper one thing to myself. Just one line. Nothing has to be perfect today. That line lets me breathe. It sets a tone of compassion. It doesn't mean I won't try or care. It just means I don't have to carry the weight of flawless execution. Because perfection is a moving target. It's a trap. And chasing it is like running on a treadmill and wondering why you never arrive. But presence? Presence is the opposite. It's arriving over and over, right where you are. You want to be more at peace? Start arriving. In the shower, in your drive to work, in a quiet moment, on your lunch break. Ask yourself, can I just be here right now without fixing anything? That question alone creates space. And space is what overthinking hates most, because in space there's no urgency, no pressure, no deadline for peace. There's just breath, awareness, choice. The more you practice arriving in the moment, the more you start to reclaim control, not over your thoughts, but over your attention. Because your attention is your power. What you feed grows, what you starve fades. When you feed the voice that says you're behind, you live in a constant state of catching up. But when you feed the voice that says you're doing okay, something shifts. You relax, you settle, you access the part of you that isn't in survival mode. And that part of you? That's where clarity lives. That's where self-trust lives. That's where you stop spiraling and start choosing. So much of this journey is about coming home to yourself, returning, over and over. It's not about changing who you are. It's about remembering who you are beneath the noise, beneath the conditioning, beneath the old stories. And you'll forget. Of course you will. That's normal. The spiral will happen again. The worry will show up again. But the difference now is you'll know it's not the whole story. You'll recognize it faster. You'll come back sooner. You'll sit down beside the chaos and say, I see you, but you're not me. And that's progress. That's the practice. There's a kind of magic in naming what's happening inside you, not fixing it, not explaining it away, just saying, right now I feel anxious, or right now my mind is racing. Because when you name something, you create distance. You shift from being in it to observing it. It's the difference between saying, I'm a mess, and saying, I'm having a hard moment. One is identity, the other is experience. One traps you, the other frees you. This is one of the most powerful mindset shifts I've ever practiced, learning to separate myself from my emotions. Not deny them, not stuff them down, just hold them gently at arm's length and say, this is something I'm feeling, not something I am. Because you are not your anxiety, you are not your sadness, your doubt, your frustration. Those are clouds, you are the sky. And no matter how stormy the clouds get, the sky remains open, vast, unchanged. That's your core self. And the more you reconnect with it, the less you'll fear the weather. But let me be clear, this isn't about toxic positivity. I'm not asking you to pretend everything's fine. I'm asking you to tell the truth, the deeper truth. The truth that says, yes, this is hard. Yes, my mind feels loud, but there's a deeper part of me that is still steady, still watching, still whole. And from that place, that still place, you can start to make different choices, like choosing to breathe before reacting, choosing to take a break instead of pushing through, choosing to let a thought go instead of chasing it down a rabbit hole. These are small things, but small things add up. They stack. And over time, they build a life that feels lighter. And isn't that what we're really after? A life that feels lighter, not because nothing bad ever happens, but because we're not carrying it all alone in our heads, because we've learned how to let thoughts pass without inviting them to stay, because we've built a refuge inside ourselves, a place that isn't dictated by fear or shame. I want to share something else with you, something that took me years to understand. Letting go doesn't always feel good right away. Sometimes it feels like loss, like emptiness, like silence where there used to be noise. Because when you've been holding on tightly for a long time to control, to resentment, to old patterns, the release can feel disorienting. But don't mistake that for wrongness. That space you're feeling, that's the room you've just created. That's healing taking its first breath. It might feel unfamiliar. You might even feel like something's missing. But often, what's missing is the weight you were never meant to carry. And it's okay to grieve it, even if it was heavy, even if it hurt, even if you're better off without it. You're allowed to feel the loss of something you outgrew. Because letting go isn't always this triumphant, empowering moment. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's slow. Sometimes it's just you, sitting in your car, realizing you don't have to keep proving your worth anymore. And then crying, not because you're sad, but because the pressure is finally starting to lift. That's letting go too. And sometimes it's choosing silence over explaining yourself again. It's choosing rest over perfection. It's choosing to not send that angry message. It's choosing to stay or walk away or not know the answer. And trusting that's okay. Letting go looks like different things on different days, but it always begins with one thing: permission. Permission to not carry what you no longer need. And that permission, it has to come from you. No one else can give it to you. No one else can decide for you when it's time to release something. But I'll tell you this, if you're even considering it, you're ready. If there's even a small whisper inside you saying, I don't want to hold this anymore, then some part of you is already loosening its grip. And I promise you, the freedom that comes after that is worth it. It's quiet, it's not flashy, it doesn't announce itself with fireworks, but it's steady, it's real, and it shows up in the way you talk to yourself. It shows up in the way you pause before reacting. It shows up in the way you forgive faster, breathe deeper, and stop needing to win every inner battle. That's the life you're building now. A life where peace isn't something you earn, it's something you return to, not once, but over and over, because this isn't a one-time shift. This is a practice. You're going to forget. You're going to get caught in the loop again. You're going to have days where your mind spins and your heart races. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. But now you have tools, you have awareness, you have options, and above all, you have compassion, because self-compassion is what breaks the cycle. Not willpower, not shame, not discipline. Compassion, the kind that says, yeah, I spiraled and I still deserve kindness. The kind that says, I snapped today, but I'm learning. The kind that says, this thought is loud, but it doesn't define me. That's the voice I want you to start listening to. That's the voice that lives beneath the overthinking, beneath the fear, beneath the old scripts. It's the voice that says, come back, you're safe here. There's something I need to say, something that doesn't get talked about enough. You can't think your way out of overthinking. Let me say that again slowly. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. Because the mind that's creating the spiral can't be the one to solve it. That's like trying to put out a fire by blowing on it harder. You just feed it more oxygen. The way out is actually down into the body, into the present, into breath. Your body has wisdom, your mind has forgotten. It knows when to pause, it knows when to soften, it knows how to feel things cleanly without analyzing them to death. But you have to give it space to speak. So if you ever find yourself stuck in a loop, spiraling, obsessing, can't turn your thoughts off, try this. Stop trying to solve and start sensing. Ask, what am I feeling in my chest right now? My throat? My stomach? Don't try to label, just notice. Because what you're doing here is shifting modes. You're moving from mental to physical, from rumination to regulation. And in that shift, something powerful happens. The mind quiets. Not because you forced it to, but because you stopped feeding it. This is the thing no one teaches us, that attention is fuel. Whatever you focus on gets stronger, whatever you ignore weakens. So when you stop feeding your spirals with more questions, more hypotheticals, more what-ifs, they begin to dissolve. It's not immediate, it's not magic, but it's real. And here's the even better news. The more you practice this, the faster you'll return to calm. It's like building a muscle. At first, you might need to go through the whole process, breath, awareness, feeling the body, to ground yourself. But over time, a single exhale might be enough, a pause, a single question, am I here or am I in my head? That one question has brought me back to myself more times than I can count, because presence is the antidote, always. Now, I want to talk about something else, something a little uncomfortable but very necessary. Sometimes our overthinking isn't about fear. Sometimes it's about control. We use analysis like armor. We think if we can just predict everything, we'll never be caught off guard. We'll never feel helpless again. But here's the hard truth. Life doesn't care about your flowchart. It's going to surprise you. It's going to blindside you. It's going to throw curveballs no amount of preparation could prevent. And I know that's scary. I know it makes you want to hold on even tighter. But the paradox is, the tighter you grip, the more you suffer, because control is exhausting and fragile and ultimately an illusion. The real power? That comes from flexibility, from resilience, from knowing you can handle whatever comes, not because you planned for it, but because you trust yourself. That's where freedom lives. Not in perfect plans, in inner steadiness. And yes, you can build that steadiness, piece by piece, day by day. It starts by learning to sit with uncertainty without rushing to resolve it. It starts by letting questions be questions without demanding answers right away. It starts by saying, I don't know yet, and that's okay. That sentence right there, That's one of the most freeing things you'll ever say to yourself. Because the truth is, you don't have to know everything right now. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep showing up. And when it gets hard, and it will, remember this, progress isn't linear. Healing isn't tidy. Some days you'll feel like you've mastered the art of peace. Other days you'll feel like you're back at square one. That's normal. What matters is that you don't give up on yourself just because your mind got loud again, because you're not starting over. You're continuing. Every breath, every pause, every small act of awareness, it all counts, even when it feels like it doesn't. Even when you can't see the shift, it's happening underneath, like seeds growing in soil before they ever break through the surface. So be patient with yourself. You are not a project to fix. You are a person learning how to live lighter. That takes time. That takes grace. And most of all, that takes softness with your thoughts, with your feelings, with your past. You don't need to carry every lesson like a burden. You can set some things down and say, I learned what I needed. I'm ready to walk forward. That's not forgetting. That's not avoiding. That's trusting that your past can inform you without defining you. And that's one of the bravest things you'll ever do. Letting yourself grow. Even when it's messy. Even when it's uncertain. Even when you're scared. Especially then. Because that's when it matters most. That's when the work is real. So here we are. You've walked with me through a lot. Through the noise, the spirals, the grip of perfectionism, the craving for control. Through fear and stillness, through stories the mind tells when it's scared, and the truth that lives underneath all that noise. If you're still listening, that says something powerful about you. Not that you're broken and trying to fix yourself, but that you're awake, that some deeper part of you is reaching for peace. Not the kind you perform, but the kind you feel. The kind that lives inside your chest, like a steady rhythm you can finally hear again. And I want to leave you with something important. You don't have to earn your peace. You don't have to prove your worth to deserve stillness. You don't need to achieve enough, or be healed enough, or have your whole life in order. Peace is not a reward for perfect living. It's a right. A right you claim the moment you stop outsourcing your self-worth to chaos. The moment you say, I don't need to fight my way to rest anymore. I think we've confused busyness for meaning. Overthinking for intelligence, self-criticism for responsibility. But none of those things make us better. What makes us better, more alive, more honest, more whole, is the willingness to live from the inside out, to check in before checking off, to ask ourselves, does this feel aligned or just expected? To make space for silence, to pause even when everything around us says, hurry, because that pause, that's sacred. That's where you meet yourself again. Not the version that's trying so hard to be good enough, but the version who already is. The version who remembers that healing doesn't always mean changing. Sometimes it just means returning. Returning to that quiet knowing. You're allowed to breathe. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to be. You know what I've realized? One of the most radical things you can do is stop running. Not because everything is fixed, but because you've decided you don't have to be chased by your own thoughts anymore. You can walk, you can breathe, you can rest in the knowing that nothing urgent is happening in this moment, not inside your mind, not in your past, not in your future. Right now, it's just you, just this breath, just this space, and that's enough. That's always been enough. So I want to end this with some simple reminders. You can return to these whenever things get loud again. A thought is not a fact. Overthinking doesn't solve problems, it multiplies them. You are not behind. Slowness is not failure. The goal is not perfection, it's presence. Peace isn't passive, it's powerful. And perhaps most importantly, you're not broken, you're becoming. And becoming takes time. So please go gently with your expectations, go gently with your past, go gently with this beautiful exhausted mind that's been trying to protect you for so long. Speak to yourself like someone you love, someone you would never rush or shame or demand constant output from. Give yourself the gift of kindness, especially when it feels hardest to do, because those are the moments that matter most. The moments when your inner world feels like a storm and you choose still to be your own shelter. That choice, that's the real work, and you're already doing it, one breath at a time. one pause at a time, one quiet act of self-compassion at a time. You won't always feel the shift. You won't always see the results immediately. But I promise, every small step is building something, something strong, something soft, something sacred. A life that isn't ruled by your thoughts, but grounded in your truth. A life where you don't just look calm, you are. A life where peace isn't something you chase, it's something you remember. So if you've forgotten, that's okay. You can remember now. You can come back now. You can let go, not all at once, but just a little more today than yesterday. And that is enough. That's always been enough.